Max Verstappen's on the brink of his 4th straight F1 title, and he's papered over a lot of cracks at Red Bull to get there. Verstappen's imminent coronation will be extremely hard-earned and probably his best title yet, but for Red Bull, this alone can't solve a few serious problems that have been piling up. Yes, it'll extend Red Bull's title streak in this rules era, but Verstappen's really had to work hard for this one, and Red Bull is set to miss out in the Constructors' Contest for the first time since 2021. As far as Verstappen's title bid goes, he has a 62-point lead over McLaren's Lando Norris and needs a 60-point lead after Vegas, as there will only be 2 Grand Prix remaining in Qatar, which also has a sprint race, and then the Abu Dhabi finale. If Verstappen finishes ahead of Norris in Las Vegas, it'll officially be over, but he can also finish behind Norris and get the job done. Norris has to outscore Verstappen by at least 3 points in Vegas to keep things alive. But even if he does and enjoys the biggest possible swing, it would still leave Verstappen comfortably in control, so the point is he's about to become world champion again. That is despite the cracks that have emerged throughout an intense, controversy-filled year for Red Bull off track and an increasingly difficult one on it. The problems are significant enough that another title can't just magically fix them, leaving some urgent questions for Red Bull to answer. Verstappen has done a fantastic job managing this title fight even since Red Bull's performance advantage started to disappear a quarter of the way into the season. He has outscored everybody since round 6 in Miami, the scene of Norris and McLaren's first win of the year back in May. But since the summer break, he's been outscored by Norris and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. So Verstappen really has had to drag this title over the line. As dominant as the early run of races were, including Miami, which he would have won without the safety car that swung the race to Norris, it was really only a quarter of the season that Verstappen looked comfortably in control. By that measure, Verstappen has spent more of 2024 without the fastest car than he has with it. Verstappen should savour the moment when this title is officially sealed, but knowing him, his attention will quickly shift to demanding improvements. He'll ask, do we really know why it started to go so badly, and how do we fix it? Right now, Red Bull doesn't seem to have a clear answer. In fact, it's started to point the finger more at others gaining an advantage unfairly. The most recent race in Brazil hinted at stronger relative performance, not just in the wet where Verstappen was superb, but in the dry sprint race. Red Bull felt that was early evidence of others having alleged tyre cooling tricks reined in off the back of some flexi-wing designs being clamped down on. However, that's a really small sample size to make such a judgment on, and it would be a mistake for Red Bull to spend too long looking elsewhere. If Red Bull really has been scrutinising itself as much as it claims, has it been looking in the right places? And even if it has, does it truly understand its own problems or have the means to address them? For example, Christian Horner likes to refer to its wind tunnel as a relic of the Cold War. There have been some correlation problems in development this year and talk of wrong decisions being taken back in 2023. So are Red Bull's tools or its processes fundamentally limiting its progress for now? If the last 3 races don't conclusively show that Red Bull has a handle on its problems and has really started to show stronger relative performance again, another Verstappen title can't mask the deeper car performance issues that have persisted. Red Bull has often thrived by feeling like it's us against the world. That has been a powerful tactic deployed by Horner at various points to get his team united in the face of adversity. And Red Bull has felt more under siege than ever this year. It is convinced that the performance swing in season has been too great to be explained by others simply doing better in the development war. One of its implications is that McLaren and others have been allowed to get away with things for longer because there's been a desire from F1 and the FIA to encourage a championship fight. This was rising to a crescendo during the recent Brazilian Grand Prix weekend, where Red Bull really seemed to be feeling the pressure and Verstappen was struggling with feeling persecuted as well. His stunning victory there couldn't have been better timed to ease some of the tension that has been building, and Red Bull may feel further vindicated by the FIA subsequently drawing a line under the controversial Red Bull ride height adjustment device. The governing body says that after visits to Red Bull's factory there is no evidence of it being used illegally, as its rivals keep claiming. That all helps, but animosity and accusations don't just vanish overnight. If Red Bull feels targeted, beyond how much the leading team is usually in the firing line, that paranoia could linger, even if it gets voiced in a slightly more reserved way now the intensity of the title fight has dwindled. And on the off chance Red Bull is right, because there's no evidence of direct or indirect interference to hold this team back or lift others up, does that target stay on the team's back beyond this season? Red Bull's personnel losses have mounted over 2024. Adrian Newey, widely regarded as F1's greatest technical mind, has been sidelined ahead of his early 2025 move to Aston Martin. Influential sporting director Jonathan Wheatley, responsible for running the trackside team, is departing to become team principal at Sauber ahead of its Audi era. And 2024 arch-rival McLaren has swooped for Red Bull's chief strategist Will Courtney, a move that weakens Red Bull and should sharpen up McLaren in one of its key problem areas. There's a broader issue here in how this exodus of top talent fits into Jos Verstappen's warnings from early 2024 of Red Bull imploding under Horner's leadership. That was back when Horner's own controversy erupted around the time of extensive infighting at Red Bull, and we'll get into other tensions around that in a moment. In terms of the short or medium term performance consequences, we've often been asked by fans whether Nui's exit in particular has something to do with how Red Bull declined during 2024. Correlation doesn't equal causation, and Red Bull insists Nui wasn't even heavily involved in the RB20's design. If that's true, why would his reduced role make a difference, and why would it be felt so quickly? The flip side of that is that if Nui wasn't influential on this car and the different design choices Red Bull made, maybe that was part of the problem. Maybe Red Bull would have avoided missteps if Nui had been more involved. Plus, he hasn't been around to troubleshoot the problem since, and his multi-dimensional thinking and experience can be invaluable with that process. There's an emerging doubt about how well Red Bull can manage such important transitions. It's restructuring its trackside team for 2025 when the likes of Wheatley and Courtney walk out the door, a new setup that's believed to have been key to keeping Verstappen's race engineer Gianpiero Lambiase happy, as he'll be dovetailing that job with a broader role as head of racing too. Top teams always need to evolve, and Red Bull's having to rejig the pieces as its all-conquering team gets broken up. So will it work, and will it keep the Verstappen camp satisfied? Just because Verstappen got it over the line this time doesn't mean he can do the same next year, and if he's consigned to a season in an underdog position, that could come at a big price. It can't be assumed that Verstappen's quality performances and Red Bull's robustness as a race team, being razor sharp on strategy and whatnot, can be replicated with the same result if it spends all of 2025 without the fastest car. Building and then defending a points lead, as was the case this year, is one thing. Starting on the back foot is another, which is what Red Bull faces if the trajectories of 2024 continue into next season. Verstappen has arguably overachieved with what he's had for most of this year, but with that has still come a lot of tension. As touched on previously, Verstappen's father Jos hasn't been shy about expressing frustrations with team leadership. Max himself has had plenty of flare-ups, usually over the radio, in moments of extreme pressure and frustration. Rumours of a move to Mercedes circulated for a very long time until they were temporarily put to bed in the summer. So, will Jos start searching for that exit route again? Will Mercedes come knocking if Verstappen is still their top target for 2026? Will Max's own head be turned by Mercedes, the emerging Aston Martin super team that Nui's joining, or another rival? He can only compensate for and put up with a performance disadvantage for so long, and from Red Bull's side, a season spent treading on eggshells around a frustrated driver and his entourage probably doesn't appeal much either. If the sum of everything we've covered so far in this video means that Red Bull starts 2025 behind McLaren and Ferrari, someone's patience is going to wear thin. The scenario Red Bull hopes it doesn't have to prepare for anytime soon, and publicly continues to insist it doesn't have to worry about, is life without Verstappen. With his contract running until the end of 2028, Verstappen's departure might seem distant in theory, but it's a reality Red Bull needs to consider earlier than it might want to for the reasons we've already outlined. There was even a point in early 2024, at the height of Red Bull's internal power struggles, when Verstappen hinted he may want to leave if Helmut Marko got ousted. In response, Horner said nobody's bigger than the team. It's as close as anyone at Red Bull's ever come to saying if you want to leave, there's the door. That's not the outcome Red Bull or Horner want, and another title victory will help kick that can a little further down the road. But it doesn't cement the relationship longer term, and there are still doubts about how permanent the truce from earlier this year really is. At the same time, Verstappen's importance to Red Bull has never been greater or more obvious. Red Bull wouldn't have won the vast majority of its recent titles without him. This year it would have been beaten in both contests. The car's not as difficult as Sergio Perez has made it look at times, but only a great driver could achieve what Verstappen has with it. This year's underscored how much the team relies on Max, which is a reminder that Red Bull needs a proper succession plan in mind. Red Bull's current driver pipeline has required urgent attention, and it lacks a proven superstar capable of stepping in should Verstappen leave. Liam Lawson and potential recruit Franco Colapinto may show potential, but neither is a surefire frontrunner and by extension a reliable championship contender. If Verstappen were to leave tomorrow or even in 12 months' time, Red Bull would be in trouble. The team's achievements in this era have been extraordinary, and this title will add to the list. But the season has underlined more than just a classic challenge of staying on top in Formula 1, it's exposed some specific problems within Red Bull itself. If they are not addressed, yet another Verstappen title will only offer Red Bull a temporary reprieve from its troubles at best.